Good afternoon. My name is Malcolm Hadrick. I'm a lead scientist from the Medicines Discovery Catapult. And I'm going to be talking about community innovation for drug discovery, how working with a catapult, we can exercise new models for collaborative R&D that will accelerate innovative drug discovery, as well as helping to better connect the UK drug discovery community. So I guess just what is the Medicines Discovery Catapult? So we're a national facility specifically around helping support UK drug discovery community. We're an independent organisation, not for profit. We're part of the UK Catapult network. That ranges from everything from high value manufacturing to things like Centre for Process Innovation and cell and gene therapy. So we're the new kid on the block here, but just focused on drug discovery. We want to deliver the UK's industrial strategy, and also we're funded by Innovate UK, by the government, by you essentially. We are taxpayer funded. So one of the reasons to actually form the Catapult was because of increasing pressure that the drug discovery industry face. Traditional pharma has a problem on both return on investment and lots of commercial pressures, so they need to look externally for their innovations. Where are those new ideas and new ideas for innovative discovery going to come from? SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises, are a good source of that necessary innovation and new approaches to drug discovery. And it's worth knowing that in the UK, the SME community is about 90% of the UK drug discovery life sciences community, and within that, only 42% have 42% of those small companies have less than 5 employees. So that means they have particular challenges in order to progress and move drug hunting projects along around funding, expertise, and access to technology. So within the Catapult, what our aims are is to try and identify some of those bottlenecks, some of those challenges which individuals can't take on, but drug discovery communities actually face. Think about the somebody ought to. Somebody ought to really address why different databases don't communicate with each other, why that's a big problem if you're a small company trying to access some of that information. We're looking to try and industrialize and really bring new innovations into the core of routine drug hunting, using the disparate and often hard to track down expert specialist knowledge that exists in the UK companies, and really support the UK life science industry, ultimately delivering growth for the UK economy, making sure that the UK remains competitive in drug discovery industry. So what we'll achieve with time is that the things that we do, the products that we deliver, the barriers that we break down will actually help the UK sector grow and develop and become better at delivering really effective medicines for patients. So as I mentioned, we're focusing on really enabling UK drug discovery, particularly looking at the UK SME community. And we're going to do that, and we are doing that, by providing unique scientific capabilities, so some high-end technologies which are really inaccessible for small companies, as well as acting as a centre for resource management and pointing people in the right direction. Where can they find the appropriate expert? I should also tell you what we're not. So we aim to help the UK drug discovery community and not compete with it. So we don't ourselves run contract research organisations. We are not a CRO. We want to perform drug discovery projects with people. We don't ourselves have internal drug discovery programs. We want to collaborate with others to move their programs forward. And we won't replicate existing capabilities or infrastructure in the UK. We'll develop new ones. So we're going to look for those specialist areas which aren't already covered, those areas where the UK is strong, that we can help it to grow, and in those areas where SMEs need our help to move their projects along to develop new drugs. So these are some of the capabilities that we have available, and these are available to all UK SMEs, but then we also work with academics and with big pharma, as they are often also supplying the ideas and the ultimate customers that SMEs are aiming for. So we've got a series of themes that we make available: discovery, science and technology. We have expertise in informatics, Samples and data, so it's really important that we can access relevant human clinical samples and make those available for drug discovery efforts. We're also innovating in areas of virtual research and development and a new concept about discovery syndicates, really bringing patient to the center, at the heart of new drug discovery programs. So I'm from Discovery Science and Technology, where we're interested in really establishing highly relevant, predictive human patient models so that when we're developing new drugs, we know that the drugs are going to work, they're going to be effective, they're not going to fail. We heard earlier about that attrition. If we can introduce better predictive models, we're likely to be more successful at delivering new drugs. As well as complex cell models, we're also developing a biomarker strategy. How do you know that your cell model and your drug is actually working? We want to help companies establish their hypothesis. Intervening with a particular target will have a therapeutic effect, and also interested in drug delivery technologies so we can try and rescue some drugs which are currently have a low therapeutic index. So this is just a schematic of currently who we're helping. So we're able to offer biology models, so models for drug discovery alongside associated advanced technologies, and these typically aren't accessible by SME community. A lot of us come from the pharmaceutical industry, so we have an extensive drug discovery expertise and background, and we have an extensive network where we can help smaller companies make those collaborative relationships which are really important to progress their projects forward. So I'm just going to go through some of the examples that we've got, and these are technologies which are available to SMEs, and we want to work and collaborate with them. So as I said before, really developing the next generation cell models is really important, that we can recapitulate human physiology and disease in a much more relevant and patient-relevant context. So we're developing cell models. Some of those are highlighted in that central graphic. Towards the left there, you can see that we're really interested in moving things on from simple 2D monolayer models into more complex 3D and predictive spheroid models using patient-derived material and stem cell sources. One particular area I'm passionate about is organ-on-a-chip technologies. We see a lot of value we can create by connecting different cell models together, and offering that as a technology means that we could potentially connect a model developed in a university with a model developed by an SME, put those two together and start to have a meaningful biological interaction, just as you have now in your heart, communicating with your lungs, your brain, organizing everything that's going on, rather than testing in simple, isolated, unconnected models. So we've got a growing portfolio of things that we're getting involved in, and a growing interest in neuroinflammation and fibrosis disease areas. So we're particularly interested in collaborating with people in those areas. I mentioned earlier that biomarkers are really important. So we have a biomarkers team, and their role is to really introduce a biomarker strategy at the very early outset of a project, so you can begin to develop a biomarker. How do you know that your particular drug is actually working? You can make those into assays and ultimately test them in the clinic to show that the things that you are measuring translate to a therapeutic effect in a patient. We have lots of different technologies that we can use to apply to that, one of which is nanostring. That's kind of a leading omics technology where we can actually profile gene expression changes and protein changes within our cell models and use those as good indicators of a therapeutic effect. I mentioned earlier our interest in drug delivery. There are lots of drugs which have failed and are sitting in the shelves of the pharmaceutical industry because they have an element of toxicity associated with them. Their efficacy, how good they are, is limited by their toxicity. If we can take those drugs and target them, sort of encapsulate them, prevent their toxic effects, there's a chance that we can actually rescue some of those drugs and make those readily available. So we're very interested in drug delivery. We have a project around microbubbles with the University of Leeds at the moment, which is specifically around rescuing or repurposing some existing cancer therapies. We've got lots of imaging capability at Alderley Park, where we can actually measure the biodistribution and the effect of those drug delivery technologies in vivo models. We're also able to support SMEs to demonstrate target engagement and validation. So does their compound actually reach its desired site of action? Is it the correct molecular target that you're engaging with? And what are the consequences of hitting that target? So really it's about the skills and technology to build confidence in that disease model and that nascent therapy that will go on to be a patient medicine. Continuing the theme of inaccessible technologies, we've invested a lot in mass spectroscopy. So this is really high-end equipment where you're able to profile complex mixtures and resolve what's in them. We've recently announced a deal with AstraZeneca where we were using acoustic mist technology coupled with mass spec, which will allow us to really assess the constituents in nanoliters, tiny, tiny volumes of patient material. This technology is all available and is typically out of the reach of a typical SME. And of course, we have the expertise in-house to help those smaller companies get the best out of this technology, including doing things like mass spec imaging, which will build up a distribution profile of, for example, where your compound is actually present in a tumor, which is the graphic that you can see there. So as well as having lab-based capabilities, we recognize at the Catapult that it's important to support SMEs in other areas. One of those areas is informatics. There's now big data is everywhere, and it's really hard for small companies to access that data and know how to handle it and process it. So we have an informatics group who are specifically there to help those smaller companies handle their data and access a wealth of data that is out there for lots of different drug-related properties like drugability and in silico, so computer simulations of target validation and understanding. Within the informatics, there are several different themes that we're developing. So one of the issues that lots of people are facing is databases don't talk to each other. If you're a company with an electronic notebook, you try and take that project to another company, you'll find they have a different electronic notebook, and those two things don't communicate. That is a real nightmare in terms of trying to be collaborative and have projects transition around and move forward. So one of the aspects of this group we're looking at is trying to break down those barriers and make electronic notebooks talk to each other so you can transfer that data. We have lots of other things that we can do in the bioinformatics space. One particularly important one for the SME community is understanding who's out there. What does the UK community actually look like? Who's got the expertise that you need that you can get in touch with to help move your project forward? So we're developing sort of, if you like, a UK-based map using all of those sources that you can see. So it'll be essentially an interrogatable database. If you've got a particular interest in liver fibrosis, you can query that map and it will report back to you who are the leading academics in that field, who's got the best assets, and as a small company you will then have people you know you can go and talk to. One of the key things that I also mentioned earlier, which is important, is access to human-derived material. So you can do the ultimate sort of testing for your therapeutics by saying, do they work in ex vivo tissue? Surveying the SME community, they've told us that they think it's really valuable, so you can see those bars in green, to be able to access this patient material and understand where it's come from, the ethics associated with it, and what you can do from it. But you can also see the distribution in red is their feedback that it's really difficult to actually access that material. Despite the NHS and a lot of people giving consent to give up their patient samples, it's often very hard to track those down. And as a smaller company, how on earth do you get through all that bureaucracy to access those samples? So that's one of the areas that Catapult is helping with, and by partnering with other companies, trying to break down some of those barriers to enable access to really relevant patient material. One other area, which again is relatively new, is the concept around virtual R&D. So you're a small company, there are about 5 or 6 employees. How on earth do you understand everything that you need to do to move a drug project forward? So the virtual R&D team can help you with that in the Catapult. Some of the areas that they're able to help with is sort of helping you establish a pop-up advisory team. So let's say you're progressing a project and you find an unexpected cardiotoxicity. This team can help you identify who are the cardiotox experts in the UK that you can go and talk to. They can also help you get in contact with some of those contract research organizations who may specialize in that cardiotoxicity to help you solve your problem. Just as a graphic, you can see that all of those different activities need to come together to move a drug project forward. Now, if you're a large pharmaceutical industry, you'll probably have an entire department that will be interested in ADME or PK studies. If you're a small company, it's very different. Who do you actually go to and help to seek help? So the virtual R&D team can absolutely help identify the right people for you to approach. And they do that by recognizing the current strengths that we have in the UK in drug discovery in both the company sector, the CRO sector, and being able to combine that with the academic centre of excellences that we have to put you in touch with those people that you need to speak to. Lastly, this new concept that we're working through is the idea of discovery syndicates. So only really patients know the sort of therapies that they want, the sort of therapies that will benefit them. But in a traditional pharma model, the patient voice is often very seldom heard. So this is a new approach to actually working with patient groups and with patient research charities to try and focus on exactly what does the patient need. Does the patient really need a disease-modifying approach for their osteoarthritis, or actually would they prefer something for the pain? So by talking to those patients, we may be able to get better targeted therapies to speak to their actual needs. So the Catapult is a national facility. We're based at Alderley Park in Cheshire on the old AstraZeneca site, and we're available and open for business. We want to work with the SME community, collaborate with you to move drugs forward. So this is the sort of take-home message. We have available out-of-reach technologies and associated expertise that will really help small companies move their drug projects forward, like complex cell models, omics, and mass spec as some examples. We want to help those smaller companies point you in the right direction, get you in touch with the partners that you need to talk to solve your critical issues to move projects forward. We want to work with you in collaborative projects where we can share some of that risk and reward. We can invest in some of your projects and move those forward so that the Catapult can benefit and the small company can benefit. We have in-house expertise who can help small companies identify their grant funding opportunities. It's a real nightmare working your way through that if you're not familiar with it. We have experts who can help you target the right places to raise money for your company. And finally, we are able to offer a sort of fee for service. So if you want some bespoke work doing, which isn't routine work, it's not available at the CRO, using some of those technologies, then the Catapult will be able to help you with that. So finally, my last slide. Hopefully you've got a sense of what Catapult is, what it has available, and how it can help the UK SME community. And so I'd really encourage you to get in touch with us using all of those means available, particularly if you have an ongoing project, something that you see has a relevant commercial opportunity and it fits within the remit that I've described today that we can help you with. I'll wrap up there and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are you currently working with many companies? Has there been much uptake?
Yes, we have some academic collaborations with a number of key universities. With specific companies, we're working with 2 UK stem cell providers. So we're using some of our omics technology to help them guide their differentiation protocols. So they are delivering a microglial stem cell. We've done analysis of what those stem cells look like and how they compare with actually native primary microglia, and feeding back that information to show which pathways need to be optimized so they can move their differentiation protocols forward. So that's a really nice example of how we can stretch our assets with these extensive technologies and help them shape that product to then move it forward and bring it to the marketplace. In other areas, again in the stem cell area, we're looking with a small Cambridge-based company to help them develop patient-derived cardiomyocytes, so heart cells, and then see if we can move them forward to make them more mature than is currently what's available on the market. So that will be a nice addition, a new capability to the market, and will also move our cell models forward.